Inside the Magic, show number 452 for December 1st, 2013. It is Sunday, December 1st, 2013. This is show 452 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti, with another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and plenty more fun. And before we jump into all of it, I do invite you to visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net. There you will find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and a whole lot more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, or anything that you want to send in, you can do so by emailing me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net or call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Be among the first to experience the newly reimagined Disney Magic with new spaces and surprises to delight kids, adults, and families. There's a 5-night Western Caribbean cruise just waiting for you, sailing out of Miami, starting at $625 per person, double occupancy, and free shipboard credit is available with each booking. So you're going to want to call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387. Or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And thanks very much to all contributors to Inside the Magic. If you're doing some holiday shopping on Amazon this Christmas season, go to InsideTheMagic.net/Amazon first before you add anything to your shopping cart, and then we'll get credit for anything that you purchase on there. And I thank you much for all of it. And now, let's get started with a trip around the world. And it is December, so time for a little Christmas music here in the background as we go through the news. And actually, I just mentioned the Disney Cruise Line a minute ago, so we'll start off there. We're on the Disney Fantasy just a few days ago with the official debut of Frozen. Hopefully all of you have had a chance to go see it already. Great movie. With the debut on board, there was a surprise for those who were on the ship, and that was that Princess Anna was indeed on board as well, meeting and greeting with guests just outside the Walt Disney Theater, wearing an outfit similar to what she's been wearing in the parks, though she didn't have her colorful, sort of pinkish, purplish, I'm not sure exactly what that color is called, mauve, maybe? I don't know. Not wearing that overcoat, anyway. But apparently she'll be getting that soon. But regardless, she's on board for a limited time while Disney continues to run that film. And, go see it, whether you're on the Disney Fantasy or you're anywhere else. Frozen is definitely a movie you don't want to miss. I'm going to be talking quite a bit more about the film later in this week's show with some behind-the-scenes details. Now, speaking of Christmas, this is something else you can check out online over on our website that you definitely don't want to miss. A new 30-second hand-drawn 2D animated ad for Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party has shown up online from Disney's Yellow Shoes Creative Group. They're the ones who put together all the advertisements out here, or a lot of them, out here for Walt Disney World and a lot of what Disney does. Anyway, this new ad is, as they say, inspired by shorts as well as vintage holiday greeting cards, and it's kind of going along with answering the question of what exactly makes Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, well, very merry. In addition to this great little ad, the very sort of classic hand-drawn animated style, there's also a downloadable story explaining how Mickey's first Very Merry Christmas Party came to be with a bit of rhyme. Head over to InsideTheMagic.net to watch the video and to download that. Now, out here at Walt Disney World, the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is finally starting to show some level of detail in that up on top of the attraction, there's a big hill, of course, there's a roller coaster track, there's a mine that is forming, and up on the top of all of it, there's a couple of buzzards that should certainly look familiar to anybody who is a fan of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or even Snow White, the old Snow White ride out here. So the details are beginning to show up. It should be really exciting to see all of it come come together over the next few months, leading to a spring opening next year. And continuing with some Christmas fun here. Actually, of course, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hopefully your holiday was good. I've been stuffing my face with stuffing and turkey and all that stuff over the last few days, and now all of that's over and done with. But, of course, on Thanksgiving morning was Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and fortunately the weather subsided long enough for those big balloons to fly their way, that is, through the New York streets, and new, or rather returning to the parade this year, was Happy Hippo, who is going to be making her way down here to Universal Orlando for Macy's Holiday Parade. And she'll be a part of her own mini show beginning December 7th. So looking forward to seeing that in just a few days. Definitely stay tuned to InsideTheMagic.net for not only a report from Universal Orlando's Christmas, and of course Disney's Christmas, as I have been reporting on. Also went to SeaWorld recently. And in addition, we're going to have a report from, for the first time ever, actually, from Busch Gardens Williamsburg coming up this week. Christmas Town there, as well as Busch Gardens out here in Tampa in Florida, and Knott's Merry Farm out in California as well. So really expanding the Christmas coverage this year. Look for it all over on the website very, very soon. Speaking of SeaWorld, by the way, I should mention here that pretty much every time I've posted anything about SeaWorld in recent weeks, had a lot of controversy about it. Basically, a lot of people have seen this Blackfish documentary that aired seemingly endlessly on CNN for a while. And of course, a lot of negative things being said about SeaWorld in that documentary. Well, as a result of that, the upcoming Bands, Brew, and Barbecue concerts at SeaWorld Orlando are going to have one less performer. Bare Naked Ladies have canceled their upcoming concerts at SeaWorld due to this Blackfish backlash. I'm going to just stay out of it for this point. It's a very political issue, very hot topic, and I don't even want to get into it here, but just to let you know, if you were looking forward to seeing Bare Naked Ladies at SeaWorld, not going to happen. Let's turn to movies now, where, of course, I was just talking about Frozen doing very, very well at the box office, but not well enough to take that number one spot over the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend. That honor went to the Hunger Games sequel, Catching Fire, at $110.2 million, which apparently was the biggest ever for any film over this Thanksgiving weekend. But Frozen, not bad at all. Second place with $93 million. That is Disney's biggest animated opening ever. Tangled previously brought in $69 million opening weekend in 2010, which was very good, but $93 million is phenomenal for Disney. Disney is having a record year in many, many ways. In fact, just this past Tuesday, November 26th, the Walt Disney Studios did pass the $4 billion mark for the first time ever in Disney Studios history. So it is a record year. Of course, Marvel greatly contributing to that with some very exciting films that have come out there, but many more to come, certainly between Marvel, Star Wars, and whatever the future of Disney animation is. Things are looking big and bright for Disney's film units, which is fantastic because we're the ones who can enjoy all of these great new movies, which I certainly have been. So stay tuned just a little bit. We're going to be talking even more in depth about Frozen, but that'll do it for your news from around the world this week. This week's tip comes in from Mike. Pretty simple tip, but definitely a good one. Mike writes, no matter how many days you're going to be inside the parks, I recommend that you arrive to wherever you are staying early in the day, even early afternoon, since most hotels start checking at 3 p.m. And after you've settled into your space, downtown Disney is a great place to start off your trip. There's a Disney feel throughout the area, and it's still casual and free to wander around. Mike, this is a great tip for many reasons, but for me, I've had
far too many times where I show up on a trip, let's say I go to Disneyland, and I show up there and, it's not check-in time yet. And I've made the mistake of just sitting around the hotel, waiting for my room to be ready. You can... it's just not very fun to just sit there and wait and hope housekeeping will get your room done. And, you can ask for it to be sooner, and it doesn't always happen. And so why not just drop your bags with, with guest services, Bell's station, whatever you want to call it, and they'll be happy to hold them for you. And this is, with most hotels, and certainly Disney's hotels. And then whether you're at Walt Disney World or Disneyland, definitely go to downtown Disney. You don't need park admission. You can just wander. You definitely get that Disney feel. Do a little shopping if you feel like it. If not, you can just certainly grab a bite to eat and enjoy. And some of Disney's hotels even allow you to have a text message sent to you when your room is ready, so then you can be like, time to go. Let's go dump our bags in our room and be on our way. So, good tip there. Everybody else, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. Now, before we go in depth with Disney's Frozen, I do want to mention Capturing Magic, the iPhone apps that are the ultimate tool for documenting and recording the magic of your Disney vacation, whether you are at Disneyland or Walt Disney World. Capturing Magic offers a helpful list of photo opportunities and memories to capture, before, during, and after your trip. The perfect way to ensure that you don't miss any of those magical moments, because when you're in the parks, the app's actually going to remind you of any of the photo ops that you picked out when you're near those locations, and then you take a picture, you mark off who's in it, what camera you used, and you can organize all of your photos quite easily later. Capturing Magic iPhone apps are available now in the iTunes App Store. Now, I've already offered my thoughts on the film Frozen, my review of the movie, but this week I want to explore it a bit more. I had an opportunity, unfortunately I couldn't make it, but I sent Josh Dawes out to Disney Studios in California for a day of behind-the-scenes interaction with those who made the film Frozen. Now, I'll put in a warning here up front. If you haven't seen Frozen yet, there is a possibility that you might have a little bit of the film spoiled if you continue to listen to the next, half an hour or so of this show. The spoilers are very light. No big plot points are given away, but just sort of little tidbits here and there you might not want to hear. So, but for those of you who have seen Frozen, and by the box office results that I just mentioned, it's most of you, certainly a great movie, doing very well, and absolutely does need to be seen. For those of you who have seen it, you should enjoy a couple of chats with, as I said, those who are the creators of the film, that is directors. This is where we're going to start. Directors Chris Buck and Jennifer Lee, as well as producer Peter Del Vecchio. They all chimed in on a number of topics. And we're going to start off with just talking about the story origins. So the voices that you're about to hear are the names that I just mentioned, talking about how it moved from Hans Christian Andersen's original Snow Queen story into what we know now as Disney's Frozen.
Well, the original pitch was about a Snow Queen type person. It was still inspired by the Hans Christian Andersen, but it wasn't exactly that story either. So I streamlined it, but I think what was most interesting was about a character that had a frozen heart, and that someone, some other person would warm that heart up and bring that person
back.
Also
was definitely more of a villain in a simple sense, like a straightforward sense. I mean, now, and then she's much more complex now. That evolved over time.
And then it was just two women, but they weren't sisters. And then when suddenly the idea came in about making these two characters sisters, that emotional bond between them and the story and everything, everybody got it. Everybody that was, helping out on the team, and even people here in the building, everybody went, "Oh, that's great," because they could understand how these two, if you break apart these two sisters, you really want those two to get back together. The audience is rooting for them the whole time.
And something more Tanya does, which is the concept of fear. She represents fear in society, and Anna, of course, represents love, and sort of that small light through the fear, and trying to say that maybe we shouldn't live ruled by fear, but perhaps love is a brighter way to look at it. And so we just love that theme, and that was from the original, and we brought that in.
And what I love about that too was that the character of Gerda doesn't give up on Kai. Never gives up. Always going to save him from
So
this
you kept
negativity. So we kept
Yeah.
that too, and that's one of Anna's
But
strengths.
as always,
Go
you,
ahead.
you go around these circuitous routes, and then some things come back. But one of the things, was interesting, we couldn't show you today, but Chris in his very first pitched a very special ending that John and Ed really responded to. All of us did. And it's actually, we always wanted to earn that ending. And it's actually the one thing that's not changed. No one's seen an ending like this before. And when I came on as a writer, they said, at first, they said, just earn that ending. And that was my biggest charge. So
Yeah.
that didn't change.
It was a very difficult thing to do, though, too. But we can't tell you what it is, but it's worth it.
Now, our first look at Frozen was a teaser featuring the reindeer Sven and Olaf the snowman being rather silly. And the tone of that teaser couldn't be any more different from the overall tone of what the film actually ended up being. So Josh, of course, wanted to know where that difference came from, how the tone of the film, between its many dramatic moments and its many comedic moments, how the balance all was struck, and how it all really came together. So here are the responses from the director and producer of Frozen.
I think what you always want to be entertaining, but I always come from the philosophy of you're always going to get the perfect balance of comedy and drama if you give it to the characters, and because people are funny, even in dramatic situations they do awkward things, and if you root your comedy in that and just who they are and what they want, even the simple one of a carrot, there's a humor that comes naturally and organically. So as you're building a very big complex film, you don't feel like you've got two different films. You just feel like you're with a bunch of people you love, and you laugh together and you cry together. Hopefully, that's the goal. As characters, and you care about their journey, and so and that just feels like real life to me. And the people that I'm with, and as you're going through hard situations, the humor helps you get through it. And so we really tried to keep that how we shaped our tone, so we could go big and epic, and actually have those moments where you are worried for them and feel for them, and yet at the same time it's come from you getting to know them and laughing with them. So.
And it is, as filmmakers, it's always difficult to find the tone. The first reels that you put up, story reels, it's usually all over the place. There's either way too much comedy and not enough drama, or too much drama and not enough comedy. So it's our job to find the balance, to keep people entertained, to get the emotion in there, but get the humor and everything. So it's never easy. And like Jen was saying too, that this is a big movie, and you met Mike Giamo, and Mike, when I first gave him the first treatment, I was just involved with characters and thinking about what the emotion of the story, and he just said, this is a big movie. And I said, well, yeah, it's a big movie. I know that's going to be big. No, it's a big movie. And he meant like this.
To tell that
scope
story.
And everything. And then as we went on, we especially a year ago, we realized this is a huge movie. So I think it's one of the biggest that Disney's ever done.
Yeah.
And so, anyway.
Now, Frozen is definitely a princess movie, but not like every other princess movie that's been out there. I mean, Disney has gone through many princess movies over the years, but none have ever had this sister dynamic that Frozen has, and certainly other things that unfold, particularly near the end of the film, are unusual. So, it's certainly worth hearing about where that princess dynamic really fit into the creation of this film.
We were really free on this. We didn't have any pressure to make them princesses or queens or anything. We didn't actually. What happened with us is that for the stakes of the film, it's set in a time where, it's not like America now and there's like a government official or a policeman or something. It's set in a time where the people who have the most pressure on them are the royal people, the ones who are in charge. And having our character, Anna, be in this situation where her sister, the queen, has just accidentally cast an eternal winter, and then she is stuck between having to protect her kingdom and wanting to, help her sister. To us, those were the greatest stakes you could do. And, Disney's happy, that's great, but in no way, and I think when the people see the whole film, we totally have, like in something like, Game of Thrones kind of way, them being princesses has to do with the responsibility. And that's great that we were free to do that, but we weren't, we're happy that it makes Disney happy too, that they like having the princesses. It's great, but that was what was nice is with John especially. It's hands off, what the story needs is what the story needs.
And I always look at these characters. I look at them as characters first, Elsa and Anna, and princesses second.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's just like a
Yeah, I think in the whole
thing.
development of the story, we never really thought of either of them that way.
No,
I mean, particularly Honor, she's the title princess, but to us, she's the ordinary hero. That's what we call her, because she's the girl, she has no powers. She's 18, she's lived in a castle, with, not gone out much, and suddenly she's, out in the middle of the woods, and she's fearless. That's what she's got, and she has a huge heart. And it played to our theme of, fear versus love, and that's a girl that I felt like a lot of us relate to her. The ordinary hero doesn't think she has anything except her, I want to try, and that surprises you, and that was really how we went with her.
And then there's Olaf, a character that when everybody first saw him through the teasers, through the trailers, everybody thought, oh no, this is going to be some kind of stupid, silly slapstick character. But then you see the movie and you fall in love with Olaf. He's very endearing and cute and funny and just a wonderful character, a great addition to the Disney lineup. And the development of Olaf, where he came from, what he ended up being, is quite an interesting story.
Olaf has changed a lot. Olaf started as one of Elsa's guards when she had created all these big guards to protect her palace in another version. But he was the first one that she created, so we always had this fun idea of she didn't quite have her powers yet. They all weren't as finessed. So we always looked at him as the first pancake that you make, the one that's like burned on the bottom and you kind of throw out. That's Olaf. Olaf was the first pancake. So he was always a great character in that. We got rid of all these guards for her thing, except for one, the marshmallow. But then the story evolved, and Olaf became a little more integral to the plot, which is what you didn't see, is that the two young girls create Olaf when Elsa first shows her not first, but it's one of the first times we see her magic as a kid.
It's not the Olaf. They roll him Olaf, and they call him Olaf, and they move him with their hands, and they
He doesn't. He's not alive.
But he loves warm hugs, and his name's Olaf, and it's the last occasion they had when they were free and could love unconditionally without the weight of the world on them, and as little girls, and so when Elsa creates him and let it go, it's out of the loss and the memory of the last time she was happy, really. And so he's imbued with that innocence. That's what he, in the theme of fear versus love, he represents innocent love and the childlike love that we, as everyone sort of hangs on that thematic clothesline a bit. That's what he represents. And he's got a lot of the personality of the little Anna when she was little, and just that sort of state the obvious way kids are, but yet sometimes, ridiculous and sometimes poignant.
Yeah.
But we did interrupted. We have a lot of Josh Gad. Like, we've plenty of material. We could do another movie probably with it. But that was what was fabulous. He came in, and the first time, it was a fun thing. The first time we had him in, we knew, we wanted to be Olaf, and we had some rough pages for the Meet Olaf scene. We called it, and we gave him to him, and then we said, let's just play. And we just kept throwing things at him, and he'd throw things back. And that session is exactly the Meet Olaf. It's like all from that first session, and that was how we found his voice. And it's his biggest scene. That and those are he's here throughout and not quite as present, but that was his scene where we met him, and that was it. From that day on, we knew it was so easy to write him. We just knew, and he'd come in every time and was willing to try anything. He was a really great person to work with.
And a huge part of Frozen is the music, and the musicians are certainly famous and very talented, but not what you'd normally think of when it comes to a Disney film. Very interesting to hear how all of that came together as well.
Bobby and Kristen had done a picture with Peter.
I'd worked with them before, and I think listening to what these guys wanted to do with the film, I knew that we needed to work with a talented team that would be very, very involved with us right from the beginning in terms of developing the story and how everything would interact. We actually went to New York. I was familiar with the work, but you saw Book of Mormon and Avenue Q. And then we had a meeting in New York, and the chemistry was right, and they were the right match for it.
Yeah, they're just a great team, the two of them. They're very story oriented, and we work with them every day.
For 14
on this
months.
video monitor that's not there anymore, right behind you. But yeah, about 2 hours every day, and just really working, really pounding on these songs and trying to get them as strong as they could be.
Yeah, we didn't want to
Very
do.
good collaborators.
We also want to do something different and kind of fresh, and not just in the style, but also, we didn't want to do something that where there's just like you go, then you stop. There's a song. You go, to stop. There's a song. Or we also wanted to do a very big, complex movie, and traditionally, like that, some of the earlier films, the story's very simple. We wanted to really push it, and so we needed to work with them in such a way where every song drives the plot forward or gives you information that's going to be significant later, or shapes or has to do with the theme. And so there was so much back and forth where we would land on a song, and then every scene leading up to it had to change, and then much to my exhaustion, and then times where the story would evolve and we'd have to lose a song, and it was that every day for 14 months. So they were amazing.
Now, one of the biggest topics when it comes to Frozen and Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph and recent films versus decades of Disney history is, of course, CG/3D versus the old traditional hand-drawn 2D version of animation, and why Disney seems to be sticking with CG for now. It's interesting, particularly with Frozen, because it has had such a long development cycle. I mean, this dates back all the way to Walt Disney in some respect, that he had looked at Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen as potential for a Disney animated film. And of course, back then it would have been hand-drawn 2D. But today, here we are, 3D, CG, very different look. And, I'll let the directors and producer tell you why.
I mean, originally it was a hand-drawn movie, but that was years ago. And then...
Is that with the original concept that you first presented?
Yes. But as a couple of years went on, the success of Tangled and the CG of the human characters was incredible. Really, they just raised their game, and so it was possible to do these characters better in CG. But really, what it was more of the environment with the ice and the snow. Especially the ice, to do that in CG, really make it look just amazing. I think you can only do in CG right now. So that was more, it was the environment, it was more than anything the decision to say this thing can be spectacular in CG. So.
That's one of the things I love about the studio is, having produced both hand-drawn and CG movies, is we have all the options available to us. I know Paperman, last year if you saw that short, sort of a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. We had Mark Henn working with our animators, who's a hand-drawn animator, but he would do draw-overs in the animation room. So we're constantly infusing the talents, the cross-talents into
They
CG.
loved Mark. There is no... I think a few years ago there was a little bit of 2D versus 3D, what's that? But right now at the studio, I think they really are. They're sort of they're working so well together, and everybody respects Mark so well.
Well, Get a Horse that you saw this morning is a good example.
And you've got
very
Eric,
closely together.
Eric Goldberg. So those guys are still here, and they're still helping out in certain ways, and we'll see more and more.
Yeah, and there's an interesting thing that's happening with technology too, because I think there's a charm that we're able, we think in a great way because of our rigs, to bring to Frozen, which is the character of the face, the aliveness, the expressiveness that we relied a lot on the 2D animators to really help us shape. But there's also technology-wise, they're doing a lot more to sort of hybrid them and bring them together, because there's a want for that we all feel. It's like you never want to lose that. It makes it special. So I think it's that ever evolving. But it feels, really balanced right now for us, and we had a ton of help.
So with that, we're going to move on to a different group of people. Now we're thinking about the art design of Frozen. Beautiful film, certainly with all of the ice and snow and the colors and great costuming and inspiration from Norway. There was a lot that Disney put into this film, and it's very interesting to hear how it all came together. But before we get to all of that, there's one more question that Josh asked of this new group of people that he had a chance to speak with that is something that I definitely wanted to know. Those who are behind sort of the look of the film are Mike Giamo, Lisa Keene, and Brittany Lee. And the subject that I was certainly interested in, many who have seen Frozen have thought, hey, that's a really great film, except for maybe those silly little trolls. They kind of stand out, particularly in their song toward the end of the film, that it just doesn't feel like the rest of the movie. Kind of feels silly and unnecessary and probably could have been cut completely. So it's particularly fascinating to hear exactly when they got added to the development process of Frozen.
The trolls came in at the very end. It was the last thing to be written, so it meant in the design world, it was very stressful.
Yeah.
It was very stressful because
It's a time we like to
a little bit. Because the clock is ticking, and you have to. Thank goodness we had our language down, because the trolls came in and it's a whole group of characters, and but we figured it out. We used the rose mauling motif and what grows in nature. Lisa was really helpful. She had a book on lichen. And there were certain patterns and swirl patterns in lichen that we really caught into, and so we actually took that. And so you'll notice most of the trolls have a swirl motif on their little capes, and we thought, gee, we'll use the lichen motif, and that can also relate to the rose mauling as well, so that's their own organic rose mauling.
The whole troll idea also is very Norwegian. It's part of their folklore and culture and everything, so it was kind of important to have that.
Now I want to take a step aside so you can hear more about the art design of the film Frozen. Again, this is Mike Giamo, Lisa Keene, and Brittany Lee, who were all integral to the creation of the look of Frozen. Very interesting to hear about research in Norway and in Canada and many other inspirations, and even quite a lot of good advice from John Lasseter as well as to how Frozen should really come across on the big screen. So here are those three talking about the look of Frozen for a little while, and then I will be back on the other side.
The first thing when you start a project this large that you need to do is heavily research. And even though this is a classic tale, based on Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen, to create visually a look, you still have to do a lot of research. Because it's best to ground a fantasy in something real. And John Lasseter is really, really big on that. For him, it's all about do your homework. Don't even show me any art. I want to see how you think first before you move ahead. So we always knew this story was going to take place somewhere, probably in Scandinavia, or maybe as far northeast as Russia. When the story started really taking shape, though, in the last year and a half, it started going in a direction that told me I need to get my act together, and maybe just riffing off some general Scandinavian cultural motifs wasn't enough. So I started looking very, very closely at all the research we had done, visual images online, as well as books in my office, and I had put a lot of Post-its on some just general Scandinavian books. So I had to do a pitch for John for the art direction of this show, which is kind of similar to what I'm going to be doing with you folks. And when I went back to all my material, and I just hastily put Post-its on images that just struck me as striking. I went back, and I kid you not, about 75-80% of the images were from Norway. I didn't even know at the time that I was sort of channeling it that much. And then when I was talking with Lisa and our brilliant production designer, David Wormsley, who's unfortunately not here today, We all concurred, yes, this is the place to go. There were 3 big takeaways that when we pitched to John that he loved about setting our kingdom in a Norwegian-inspired environment. The first one was the fjords. And I should say we also took a field trip. Of course, John's really big, not only on book research, but also going. If there is a location that you're riffing off from, go to that place. Experience it. Because there's only things you know, no matter how many Google images you look at, you cannot get the flavor or the feel of a location unless you go there. The textures, the minutia, the quality of light, time of day, et cetera, those things you can only really feel for yourself. So here we are. This is the art direction team in Norway. That's Lisa, second from the left. That's David, our production designer at Dead Center, and that's me on the far right. So the first big takeaway. Wow.
We need to get somebody in here to read that.
Yeah, we should, yeah. First big takeaway were the fjords. There is nothing like the fjords on Earth. They are some of the most dramatic rock faces on the planet. I mean, they just shoot up at such a vertical rate. And then, as dramatic as that is, you have these kind of relatively placid waters beneath them. You know, so the team kind of thought, wouldn't it be great to set our kingdom in this environment? Second big takeaway was something architectural, because we had to build a kingdom, was the stave churches. Stave churches are distinctly Norwegian. They're really country churches, but their design is incredibly sophisticated. They were built around the 1160s to 1200s. They are some of the oldest wooden buildings on the planet. And it's amazing that they're still around. We loved their complex roof line, and we thought there was kind of instant sophistication and charm. We also loved the sense of texture and patterning that's on the shingles, the rooftops. These things really struck us. And we pitched to John, we want to riff on some ideas of the stave church. And he said, don't just take some ideas, actually use the design for your castle kingdom compound. So we put the two together. And this is what we created for our world.
We're having technical difficulties. Bear with us, everyone.
So here you can see how dramatic a fjord setting is. And unlike other, there's been many Disney classic tales with a castle. And so we were kind of confronted with the challenge of, how do you create an interesting castle kingdom that folks haven't seen before? So with the roofline of the stave church, that was distinctive, and then placing that kingdom tucked low in an environment. Usually Disney castles sit up on a promontory, up high, and they look down on a valley. We kind of swapped it out and said, no, let this world be embraced, this kingdom be embraced by nature. On a research trip in Oslo, in Norway, we went to a castle, and in the great room of the castle was this beautiful wall decoration, and it was a huge room, and it was on all four walls. It looked like wallpaper at first, and we got closer and we realized, no, this is hand painted. It was this beautiful pattern, and the backfield was this rich tomato red. So we riffed on that, and when you see the film in Toto, you can see inside our castle is this striking red wallpaper that works in maybe about 80% of the rooms. So that's really a great identifier and something we definitely got from our tour. The third big takeaway, which is actually small but big, looms large in our film, is this idea and concept of rosemaling. Now, rosemaling in Norwegian means rustic painting, which really translates to folk art. It's really their folk art. It can be either it's highly decorative, and it can be very cursive and floral, or it can be very geometric. And it can be on anything. It can be on clothing, it can be on pottery, it can be on furniture, walls, ceilings, columns, everything and anything. And I thought, how great to decorate a world and have a complete world with this rose mulling. And not only on surfaces, but also on characters. I was very interested in the idea of both character design-wise, both character and environment talking to one another. So we used this idea of rose mulling in detail so that these two can share a common language. And you'll see this throughout the whole film. Have you seen clips this morning?
Yes.
Yes, yourself. Okay, cool. So the other most special quality about this film that most films don't have is ice, frost, and snow. It's in the CG world, that is a very, very complicated thing to do successfully. There have been other films, CG films, that have dealt with these materials, but we knew we would have to raise the bar because it was so pervasive in our show, and not only in the natural world of our kingdom, but also because Elsa, the Snow Queen, creates magic. So we had actually two kinds of ice, frost, and snow to deal with. So Lisa, she has a brilliant imagination, but she has a kind of a twofold talent. She has the ability to really know how things work in the real world, what materials truly are, and how things are put together in the real world, but she can also push that into a kind of fantasy world too, so that the two meet, so that our fantasy world is totally believable. So Lisa's going to take you through Ice, Frost, and Snow and how we developed it for Frozen.
So one of my jobs on the movie was to design the lighting for the production. And when you first take a look at a project that's all about snow and ice, the first thing you think of is, oh my goodness, how are we going to entertain an audience in white for an hour and a half, 40 minutes? And I look at that whole thing and I say, oh, this is like a blank canvas. My background as a painter, I think that's fantastic because nature has the ability to has light with, early morning, sunsets, the temperature of light can change by weather. So for me, that was just a blank canvas to work on. So we have nature to give us, our lighting conditions. So the first thing we need to work out is what is our design conceit underneath, what are the bones, and then we go ahead and layer our light in on top. Of course, blue is a color that everyone would go to immediately, but if you got to see the clips this morning, I think you might have got a little sneak preview that we're using all of the spectrum within our palette. So we have two things. We have nature, and then Elsa, within her magic, has the ability to have light emit from the ice. So now I've got two things to work with, topical light and inner light. And how we really got inspired by that when we did our trips to Quebec, we went to the Ice Hotel, and the Ice Hotel there is just a fabulous light show. They put on this amazing event in the evening where they just rotate beautiful colored lights through all the snow and ice. And it was such an inspiration for us, and we found a way through that to say, okay, we have another way to get our movie beautiful and layer in colors that would not necessarily be in nature, that would be something that Elsa would bring to our look. It's a little difficult to see in here, but the blue image there on the lower left corner, there's a floor and a wall that go up. It's packed snow. When it's lit like this, you almost don't see the floor and the walls and where they connect. So the feeling when you get into it is very ethereal and cloud-like. So we used that idea as well as all of the ice, which is very sparkly and has a lot of reflectivity, to play against the two textures against each other, which make each one a little more special. So that was our big takeaway from Quebec. Not only did we use glacier colors, because that's what we do find in nature, but we used lighting from the sun and its various capabilities as it emits its own colored light. And then we also have Elsa providing her own light source depending on her emotions and things that she's experiencing and how that's narratively affecting her world. We'll pass that to Brittany.
One of
my tasks on the show was working with costumes, and the show is perhaps the largest costume show or costumed animated feature that's ever been done. Not only do we have a lot of various costumes, but we have many layers of clothing within the costumes, because the girls and guys have to run through the snow, so they need layers of petticoats, and they need undergarments and coats and capes and all sorts of things. So we had to find a way to make all of that work with it being so complicated. One of the things that we had to take into consideration, aside from simulation, or with simulation, is that they had to be heavier materials. The clothes had to be made out of wool. They couldn't be like Rapunzel's dress in Tangled, where it's sort of light and ethereal. So they had to all have structure. And because they have structure, they're very designed, folded, and they work with very nice shapes, and they retain their shapes well. But we add levels of fun and playfulness with rosemary, like Mike had said before. So each character really gets their own rosemary based on their personality and based on where they're from. Anna here is very playful, so she gets floral rosemary, and it sort of reflects who she is, and that you see it a lot in Arendelle as well, because it's where she's from. Whereas a character like Prince Hans, he is more structured, and his rosemary is a little bit more graphic and less floral and almost just elegant. We had the inspiration for the palace in Arendelle, a castle in Arendelle. With the stave churches, we didn't necessarily know what Elsa's ice palace could be. We tried lots of things because it's magic, and we just wanted to put ice and snow together in interesting ways. And we brought our ideas to John Lasseter, and he sort of looked at us like we were crazy and said, "You have a snowflake. It's a structure. It's a six-sided structure, and it is the perfect basis for this castle of Elsa's." So that's when we made Elsa's palace and a snowflake. It has a snowflake floor, and from the snowflake floor, the ice arms build from that. So it is six-sided in every aspect, really. It's built from a snowflake. So in that way, we were able to bring everything together and sort of relate to each other, hopefully. And
yeah. John really has creative clarity. That's what I call it. He has. I knew that at school, and I see it now. I sensed it at school, but I didn't know what the heck it was. You know, I was too young then. I was just a kid, and but now I see that thing that he had back then. He is giving to us here. This clarity that just sort of cuts through like a knife. You know, when you have so many ideas swimming in your head, he can just land something, and he was really brilliant at that moment, because we were kind of spinning. When something like the Ice Palace can be anything,
yeah, that's the hardest design.
It's difficult. It is. It's really, really hard, and he just cut through it and gave us some groundwork and really framing. And even that was a big item that he's guided us on, but other things too. Even the rose mauling idea. You know, he loved it. Oh, the characters can have all this embellishment. But he warned us, which I was so on board for, because I feel, you know, he told us, rose mauling is great, but just make sure these characters don't look like walking doilies. You know? And by that, and I was so on board with that, because what he meant was everything in this show that we're designing, we're trying to, and it's a classic tale, so we have a castle, we have a palace, we have all these things, you know, it's a period film, you know, about 1840 or so. So we have all these things that could be quaint, you know, but what we tried to do is move everything kind of forward with a design snap, with a panache, with a flair. That's why there's kind of a crispness to the show. That's why the palette is very saturated. But it's a jewel-like palette. It's not primary colors like a lot of folk wear is. You know, we're keeping it on the cool sides. The blues, the ice blues, the magentas, the turquoises. Those are kind of the colors of our show generally, and that's kind of a little bit of fashion forwardness. Elsa's hairstyle, John was very big on that. Again, moving it fashion forward. We had some styles at first that and Brittany really helped move that style ahead. He said that her hair has to be aspirational. Don't just give it a regular do. It has to be unique. We brought in a famous stylist, Danilo, who did a lot of celebrity styling, Gwen Stefani and so on. So we brought him in to consult, but the ultimate design was Brittany's. And people seem to have responded really well to it, that it has a contemporariness to it. So even though this is a period film, maybe dare I say, there's a kind of a little bit of a modernness to it.
That's all from behind the scenes of Disney's Frozen this week. I do have a lot more really interesting audio from not only the conversations that you just heard, but some other folks who worked on the sort of more technical side of creating Frozen, from snow simulations and clothing and just the rigging of characters, etc., etc. So if anyone's interested in hearing even more about what went into the creation of the film, courtesy of Josh, who had a wonderful time experiencing all of this firsthand at the Disney Studios, send me an email and let me know, and I'll be happy to include it as the weeks go on here on the show.
Hey, Ricky. Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky. Hey, Ricky. Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky. Hey, Ricky. Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Inside the Magic listener feedback.
And we'll continue the Frozen music here in the background through the listener feedback. And if you haven't picked up the deluxe edition of the Frozen soundtrack, do yourself a favor and grab it, not only for the wonderful vocal songs, but particularly the score. Really quite excellent. And just to continue Frozen a little bit more here, last week, I believe on the show, I had shared a brief call from Jeff and Janet, who were going to see Frozen at the debut of that film at the El Capitan, and I said, well, what happened? Where's your thoughts? They wanted to see if my own review stacked up to what they were seeing. So fortunately, Jeff and Janet were still tuning in, and they did send over this, their own review of Frozen.
Hi, Ricky. Jeff and Janet again.
4 big thumbs up for Frozen from Jeff and Janet.
We found it to be an exceptional movie depicting good interplay between two major characters, their differences and similarities without a clearly defined villain.
And we really didn't think you have to choose between the sisters. They both have interesting personalities and qualities that, to me, it made it hard to choose, but I come from a family with several sisters and perhaps have learned to value that variety more.
So we really enjoyed the film. It was exceptional story crafting. We thought pet owners will especially enjoy Kristoff and Sven, the reindeer, that interplay there. A really nice little kind of cheesy song that they sing together. And I liked Sven a little better than Olaf, but it's apples and oranges. There was exceptional characters throughout the entire film. And one more piece of advice: read some of the final credits. There's a really good Easter egg in the credits, as well as something at the end of the movie.
The El Capitan experience is always very good, and the D23 crowd was particularly responsive, and you really had a palpable air of how much everyone was enjoying the movie and excited to be there. And as a Disney fan, it's a great way to see a new Disney movie.
And this was our first time to the Ghirardelli
soda fountain.
Soda fountain, yeah. So that was really good.
Yum.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our response. Thanks for all that you do on Inside the Magic, and we'll be listening. Thanks
Ricky.
Well, thanks very much. Glad you responded to my response to your response to my review. And it sounds like you enjoyed the film, just like everybody else. I haven't heard a whole lot negative about it. I mean, you can nitpick it, and, like I said, I didn't really like the troll song and things like that. But overall, good movie, and I'm sure it will live on as a Disney classic in the future. Brittany writes in with our next bit of listener feedback here. Brittany writes, first and foremost, I've been loving and listening to your show religiously for the last year and a half. So thank you for always keeping me up with the latest Disney news, facts, and tips. You have an awesome job. I'm emailing into the show today because my family and I have decided to brave the Orlando Disney theme parks for New Year's Eve and wanted to get an idea of what to expect. I've heard it's busy, but how busy? Rumors of shutting down the parks early, lines too long to enjoy yourself, nowhere to eat. Are the rumors true? Any tips or tricks? Brittany, great question. And before I answer it, thanks very much for the compliments. As far as New Year's, Magic Kingdom will fill up first. It often fills up by possibly even 10 a.m., 11 a.m., very, very likely. However, later in the day, it usually reopens. Now, I without getting too much into it, they're actually staged various phases of closing. So it's not like they just cut it off and say nobody can come in. It's usually a variety of phases, like only hotel guests or only annual pass holders and hotel guests and things like that. But so you have to sort of pay attention to Twitter and whatnot to really get a sense of which phase they are in and whether you can get in. But with that said, usually later in the day, people who have been there all day long, it's getting to be 2, 3, 4 o'clock. Some people just give up and go home or go back to the hotel or decide to go to a different park or whatever, or maybe that's not where they wanted to be at the end of the day anyway. So it tends to reopen, and I can't guarantee it, of course. It tends to reopen at some point during the day. So if you want to get into Magic Kingdom, you didn't get there first thing in the morning, or you don't want to be there all day, all the way till midnight, try a little bit later in the day, and chances are pretty good that you'd be able to get in. If you're staying at a Disney hotel, even better. You have a much better shot of getting in that way, or if you have an annual pass or something like that. That said, Epcot definitely has the potential of filling up. It usually doesn't fill up so early in the day, but as the afternoon moves on, certainly toward the evening, Magic Kingdom and Epcot definitely have a very, very good chance of being at capacity, whereas Hollywood Studios, unlikely. They usually do have a pretty good show, but it's unlikely that will fill up. Now, with all of that said, it is going to be crowded no matter where you go, and you can expect very, very long lines. Like rides that normally have a 5 or 10 minute wait, you can expect a 1 to 2 hour wait. Lines literally snaking through a building, going out the door and into the streets, that kind of thing. I would not go to the parks on New Year's Eve with the expectations of riding a lot of rides. Really, you're going to do a whole lot of people watching, a whole lot of eating. I don't think you're going to have a problem finding food. You might not be able to find good food, but food in general will be available, but you're going to do a lot of sitting around, just either standing in a line or doing nothing, waiting for midnight to roll around. Personally, I did New Year's Eve once at Epcot and said, you know what, I did it, I'm done. I'm not doing that again. But it is of course possible to have a whole lot of fun as long as you come in with the right mindset, knowing it's going to be very, very crowded. Mel from Australia writes in and says, I was listening to your latest show and heard your email from Damien in Sydney, and I was wondering if you could direct him to our Down Under Disneyana Club website. We're a group of Disney fans who meet 4 or 5 times a year to talk about Disney and Disney trips, play Disney trivia, and show off our Disney merchandise. We also have club events where we go to movies or special events or go on planning holidays and to various parks around the world. It's a lot of fun. It might help Damien get his Disney fix without being judged. The website is dudisneyana.info. So great, Mel. Excellent. Good to hear that there are fans out in the Australia area who are gathering together and sharing their Disney love of Disney with each other. And hopefully that'll help out not only Damien, but anybody else out there in Australia who might not already know about your site. A couple of more emails here before we wrap this up. Next email is from Travis, who writes, question, the family and I are headed to Disneyland and Universal Hollywood next week. Are there any sightings of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the park and Minions? My son loves both. Travis, I'm right there with your son on the Ninja Turtles, and I wish they were in the park. Unfortunately, neither Disney nor Universal have anything to do with the Turtles at this point. They are with Nickelodeon, and out here in Orlando, you can find them at the Nick Hotel. However, out in California. I don't believe there's anywhere that they are currently meeting and greeting. Unfortunately, there's no attractions. There's really no anything. As far as the Minions, you're a little bit early. Universal Studios Hollywood is building a Despicable Me attraction, a pretty big area, actually. You'll be able to wander over to the former sort of corner where Terminator 2 was, and the Coke area. All of that's gone, and you'll be able to see Gru's house and a lot of the surrounding area coming together. However, it is still a ways away, several months away. So I don't think you're going to find the Minions there, but you should be able to find a nice construction wall with some Despicable Me graphics on it, and that should have the Minions on it, so at least that'll be a little bit of a photo op that your son should be able to enjoy, even if it's not the full-blown attraction quite yet. Alex from California writes, we recently received a My Magic thumb drive with My Magic Plus as part of our reservation for a January trip to the Grand Floridian. The thumb drive has a link to a short video and lights up. The thumb drive is too small to be used for much, but if you have an old iPhone charger or similar USB charger, you can make a fun Mickey Mouse nightlight out of it. Just plug it in with and the green LED will light up so Mickey can guide you through your dark hallways. Alex, that is a great piece of advice. From what I understand, they are 2 gigabyte USB drives that Disney is sending out when you get those My Magic reservations, or My Magic Plus reservations. So, 2 gigs is not bad. That can hold a pretty decent amount, but yeah, you can certainly make it light up and enjoy it as a decoration as well. Speaking of My Magic Plus, Rick writes in and says, this morning was the first time I've noticed this. I go through the Magic Kingdom parking plaza a couple of times per week. The cast members were using a wire-attached scanner to scan some cars before letting them through. The device is like the scanners in the restaurants, which are brought to the table to scan the Magic bands and cards, and I assume this is similarly a way to validate that someone is entitled to free parking. Rick, I have heard about this as well, though I haven't seen it for myself, that apparently Disney is working on, just what you said, other ways of making sure that folks are going where they're supposed to be going and that they're paying what they need to be paying in order to park in those areas. So I know they have on the back of the latest annual passes for the with the RFID enabled and all of that, they have certain colored strips to make it easier for you to just be able to show it and move on. But for those who don't have annual passes, I'm not sure how all of that works, and maybe it is those card scanners that will bring it all together. Final email here, a bit of a long one, but a very interesting one that I'm hoping somebody will have an answer to, because unfortunately I do not. Nathaniel writes, my wife and I recently returned from a week-long vacation to Disneyland. I've been fortunate enough to travel to Florida and go to Disney World every year since I have been born, 27 years, and because of this I know Disney World inside out, but I'd never been to Disneyland before. Our first couple of hours at Disneyland we were actually disappointed. Everything was tiny compared to the Florida counterpart. Everything looked old and everything was so crammed together, and some things just seemed out of place. Fortunately, a couple hours in, we started realizing that this park is not worse than Florida's. It's just different, but in a good way. We started looking around at the places where Walt Disney actually stayed, saw the original versions of many Florida rides, and by the end of the day, we were in awe of Walt's original Magic Kingdom. I even pointed out the Club 33 door to my wife, who was amazed by the idea of a private club in the park. Now, one of our last days there, we were on the Buzz Lightyear. The ride we were on, Buzz Lightyear, broke down, with our car only being inches from the unload area. They had to walk the track and let everybody off the ride, with our car being the last one. And while we sat there and waited, we struck up a conversation with an odd-looking man waiting at the exit. He had white hair and was dressed in a full white suit, wearing a 33 pin on his jacket. He told us that he had brought some friends to the park, and his job was to wait at the exit and make sure they get to ride as many times as they want without getting off. Thinking he was a guide of some sort and noticing his 33 pin, I asked him if he was a member of Club 33. He laughed and told us he was the last living founder of the club. He walked out onto the track and to talk to us closer. Cast members saw him, didn't stop him. It was like everybody knew him. He told us stories about how he was 9 years old when the park opened and his dad helped build the park. He said Walt Disney was like an uncle to him. He told us about how when he was in his 20s, he would bet teenagers dollar for dollar that they couldn't ride the Matterhorn 50 times in a row, and they never could. He told us how back when the Carnation ice cream was served on Main Street, he and his friends were allowed all the free ice cream they wanted, compliments of Walt. Finally, the cast members made it to our car to let us out, and before going to find his party, the man shook our hand and noticed our anniversary pins. He wished us a happy anniversary and told us to go ride the Mark Twain riverboat and to be sure to ask to ride with the captain. Lastly, he told us to inform the captain that we were guests of his, Mr. Nixon, and that the captain would make our anniversary extra special. Unfortunately, the riverboat was closed for the rest of the day, and we never got to find out who or what the captain would have done. We have spent the last week trying to figure out who this Mr. Nixon is and who his dad was. Do you have any ideas? Well, as I said, Nathaniel, unfortunately, I do not. I just did a little bit of Google searching, and of course I came up with endless ties between Richard Nixon, President Richard Nixon, and Disney. Many, many things have happened over the years, but I obviously, the man you talked to was not Richard Nixon. So an interesting connection there. Hopefully somebody out there would be able to take that name and the Club 33 connection there and put it all together, and you send me an email. Let me know if you know what, or rather who, this person was. Very curious. And that will do it for listener feedback this week.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And that's about it for show 452. Hopefully you did enjoy all of the behind-the-scenes details of the creation of Frozen, an excellent movie in theaters now. If you do want to hear more of that similar type of stuff, though getting a little bit more technical with it, send me an email and let me know. Of course, in the coming weeks, I'll be talking about Saving Mr. Banks with some also very interesting behind-the-scenes sort of information, but from a very different perspective. So stay tuned for that. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also, check out the Capturing Magic iPhone apps for Disneyland and Walt Disney World. You can find them in the iTunes store, and once you have them, you can easily manage your memory capturing experiences while you are in parks. And of course, between episodes of this show, visit our website, InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find show notes for the show, links and background music that's all related to each week's show, but also lots of videos and photos and articles, and find us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. We did pass 100,000 likes on Facebook, which is wonderful, so thanks to everybody who has been paying attention over there, and lots of followers on Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff, and hoping to make it out to the parks very soon to shoot even more fun video of the Christmas time out here in Orlando. I haven't seen too much of it so far, but definitely have plans to see even more, not only Disney, but all over in the very near future. So anyway, thanks to all of you for listening each and every week, and have a magical week. Goodbye.
Tomorrow's just a dream away. Man has a dream.